Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and alongside me is Gio
Yo, yo, yo.
and Mac.
Good evening.
And we are back, everyone, covering we're previewing the action for the upcoming match week 20 of the Premier League. And what a big match week it is for both of you guys. Am I right?
Oh, yes, sir.
No, I have no
Yeah,
idea what you
baby.
mean. It seems like a regular weekend. I didn't know it was Prem games.
We'll definitely get into that. Before we do, don't forget to follow us on our social medias, both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at @house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. Lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. And so let's get straight into it. Gio, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you?
I'm excited. I'm excited because obviously, of recent Manchester derbies, Man U hasn't been the best teams. And recently, the run of form has been good. So, you have that hope. As a fan, you do have those hopes that they can put in a decent performance and continue the good run of form. But at the end of the day, it is City, so you do kind of shit your pants just a little. Not a lot, but definitely you do. Especially City after coming off a loss in the League Cup to Southampton, just Southampton of all teams. So I'm scared what Pep has in store for ETH.
And obviously, Gio's referring to the big Manchester derby taking place Saturday morning for us. Big match with, I would say, yeah, like Gio mentioned, Man U coming into this game in red hot form. I think they won 4 of the last 5 games in the Premier League, whereas Man City have 3 wins, a loss, and a tie. So technically, they're not, I guess, on par with Man U, and especially with that result. Mac, are there some concerns for Man City? How do you see this game playing out?
They're a very confusing team because it's. I think that their biggest weakness really is themselves in terms of their drive, their lackluster desire. Are they going to be able to get up for certain games, right? So against these bigger teams, I'm not as concerned. Normally, if you see a kind of a one of the better teams kind of dropping points in 2 of their last 5 match weeks, as an example, you may be like, you know what? Hey, they might come into this a little bit cold in comparison to where Manchester United are, where it seems like everyone's firing on all cylinders, all things are going well. But for me, it's more so Man City playing to the level of our competition and not kind of being ready and up for games. So, do I think Manchester United will win? No. Would I be shocked if they win, considering how things have gone? Also, no. But overall, I'm still fairly confident that City should, given that they are the better team against big teams, especially Manchester United over the last couple seasons, they have a great record. Well, not really actually Pep, right? From Manchester United, I think he's dropped a couple of games previously under Ole, but when Man U were playing under Ole. But still, overall, I would be shocked if City don't come out and maybe dominate this game.
All right, so I promised you guys a hot take in our side group. Man U are in red hot form, but I have to give it to City. I have to give it to City. Listen, I think City are gonna come out and just put the game to bed early on. I hope that Man U can score early and make it a spectacle. But my prediction, City, after losing a game, Mac, you were talking about it a little bit earlier as well. After they lose a game, they come back hungrier and try to just destroy the team they're facing. I think last time these teams faced each other was in October, where Man U lost 6-3. It is a different game though. So Gio, how can you convince me that Man U is going to win this game, and who should I be looking out for on that Man U side?
You should be looking out for, definitely the matchup to look out for is not actually Haaland, Rashford. We know Haaland will likely get on the board, especially how physical he is. even if you put Lissandro back into the lineup, you put Shaw back at center back as well as he's done against weaker sides. Chances are he's going to get bodied, and so will Lissandro. So that's not really the matchup I'm looking for. The main matchup is how Casemiro kind of tries to negate KDB, which is a huge task in itself. So if that goes in favor of Man U and he's able to force him to struggle and kind of have to force the guys on the wing to try and create a little more for Holland, then I think Man U have a chance. But if KDB is KDB, then it's going to be a long day for United. And I guess on the other side is Anthony, who has scored, I guess, 2 goals in his last couple of games. He's going to be looking to shoot. He's going to be looking to shoot from outside the box. So, let's see if he can test. See if he can test Ederson early. They are Brazilian teammates, so maybe he knows what his weak points are and try to go from there. But those are the key matchups I'll be looking at. Apart from that, I think City again defensively. A little bit more sound than Man U as of right now, even though they have been struggling in the past couple of weeks. I just think they're, the way they're able to hold their shape and keep the ball is going to be vital to their game.
And Anthony, one of the players, I think, if I remember correctly, one of the scorers for Man U in that 6-3 loss against Man City. So we'll be interested to see how he does. He has had a little bit of a dip in form since that hot start, but Mac, I guess same question to you. Any X factors in the match? Maybe players that Gio hasn't picked out to influence this match and get the result for their team?
Well, I think in terms of individual matchups, when he's talking about the midfield, I think he's spot on there. If we just roll back to the previous matchup when Holland did show up, that matchup of Varane against Holland was a clear win. Varane at that point was not having his best run of form for Manchester United since coming back. I'll argue playing through since after that point, he's really put in a good shift in his best run of form since joining the club. So will that run of form be able to continue for him and potentially be able to shut Holland down? I think that's more so the matchup because since every single time City have dropped points in the Premier League, the next game they've come back and won. And their goal scoring record in, I think it's the 4 times that they have dropped points thus far this season, or 5 times. Goal scoring record is 14 goals for and 4 goals against. So they come back, and as we expect, they win, generally speaking, if you average that out, 3-1. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the similar goal scoring record that we see here, where City come back after dropping a game in a cup and put up a simple performance. And this is now 3 games on the run, really, where Man City against Manchester United have looked dominant in the Premier League matchups that they've had, going back to November 2021. It's been men versus boys. I think in this game the gap would close. I do think that, as you talked about, like Rashford, he could theoretically have a good game on a break. Casemiro is playing very, very well for Manchester United. There's good qualities, good positives here for United to be able to take. So maybe the gap won't be as wide, but I think they're just not at this level yet to be able to kind of take down a juggernaut like City, especially kind of a wounded animal, because like a cornered animal that's wounded, they're going to come out jumping you, biting you with every single shot. You don't want to face them in this situation. You would have rather them come off a large win and see if you can be that team to kind of shake them up. So. Unfortunately, in terms of matchups, other than the Varane Holland, that's the one I'm having my eyes on the entire time. One thing I wouldn't be shocked, and I think would be interesting, is if Wan-Bissaka plays this game as a right back. I think he could be a good shout to start, considering that you may not want to be as aggressive offensively if you're Manchester United down that side, especially because a lot of Holland's chances when they played against Man U was not behind Martinez, was behind Varane. So if you have a little bit of cover of a defensive player, maybe that's something that could work out. Just a thought.
Okay, that's interesting. I was going to move into, let's move into it now that we are talking about sort of team selections. Just going to read out the back line that Pep put out for that Southampton team. in their game this week. Joao Cancelo played right back. Kyle Walker played center back alongside Laporte, and Sergio Gomez played on the left side. They did have players come on with the likes of Nathan Ake, Akanji to sort of shore up that 2 in the center back spots, but I guess the same question goes to Man City. Who should they start at right back? Rico Lewis has come in and in the previous last couple games has played really well, especially in that position in midfield to sort of keep possession. But unless you have Walker, I don't think any one of those defenders can match the likes of Rashford in terms of speed and just being able to lock him down. Gio, and any thoughts about that sort of matchup on that left-hand side? Because I think for Man U, this is the perfect team to play against with their style of counterattack and the amount of players that they have that can go on those types of runs, being played through and behind by the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Christian Eriksen, and even Casemiro, who's had a couple of nice passes the last couple of games. So, Gio, thoughts?
He's had some great passes. He's really been a midfield maestro for them. The fact of the matter is, I mean, I think Pep is a lot smarter than we obviously assume. Of course, he's already very smart, and we know that. I don't think he plays anybody else but Kyle Walker there. He will do his best to keep Rashford off the score sheet, and I know, and I don't think there's anybody else really that could really stop him. I think the speed of Walker is the most important thing. Just the experience of the Prem, he's played with them. In England, he's played against them, countless amount of times. I think that's just the smartest move to do so. As hot as Rashford is, you have to almost kind of like man mark him at that point, to a certain extent, of course. But yeah, can't really see anybody else but Walker in that position right now. And again, like you said, they are very flexible with likes of Akanji being in the middle, and they just have so much rotation back there that I don't think they're ever really worried. I see him try a lot of new things, but I don't think they're ever really worried.
Okay. I guess let's move on now to players for these teams. Well, not players that feature in this game, but players that are incoming. Wout Weghorst has now, I think the loan has been agreed with him joining from Burnley because the team that he's on loan for right now terminated his contract. Mac, thoughts about this signing for Man U? Does it make sense? How do you like it? Oh, Mac, I think you might...
Sorry, my apologies. I think he's a solid player. I don't think he's, of course, the long-term solution to Manchester United's problem. He's definitely a Band-Aid. And if you look at the Band-Aids they have recently selected, they've done very well thus far, right? I would argue that Eriksen, Casemiro, both Band-Aids. Not long-term solutions, either one of them. Varane coming in, Band-Aid. Maybe not a 5-6 year center-back solution, but is going to do well in a quality and a role that he's going to play. Weghorst really is kind of, I know Gio may not be happy to hear this, but he is kind of a Fellaini option again, going back to how Manchester United used to play under Mourinho. A good sub to bring on, looking for a long ball, create a different type of play. That's the only confusing part for me I have is that what the kind of the Ten Hag ball that everyone's talked about that Ajax used to play, is that kind of the style that was supposed to be brought over? Because I never saw Ajax play like this in terms of what kind of system may fit Weghorst the best, or at least kind of your assumptions off how he's played in the Bundesliga and his time with Burnley. It'll be interesting to see if he has that little bit extra quality on the ball to link play consistently in a team that may not just hoof it long most of the time, right? But overall, I think it's a no-lose situation for United. Get him on a loan. If it works out, great. If not, he's gone fairly soon. Not a big deal. Not much to lose. And at the very least, it doesn't put them in a position where they have to overpay for a striker right now, where maybe in the summer market, you might be able to get their long-term solution for a cheaper price. So overall, I think all positives from a Manchester United perspective.
Okay. I guess, Gio, same question to you as a Man U fan. What are your thoughts?
No, I'm actually quite pleased with the signing. Obviously, we saw what he could do, particularly in the game against Argentina. But it's good to have a striker of that stature. Again, I don't disagree with what Max said about comparison to a Fellaini type player, where he's able, late game situations. You guys earn a couple of corners, you want a big body in there, just to cause a little bit of trouble for the other team. And if not, if he gets a start, it's a player of his size is great for the hold up play. That's where you get the wingers involved. The midfielders involved. So so he can lay it off for Bruno to have a shot. Ericsson to have a shot. Whatever the case may be, having those pieces and having that depth and variety to your lineup is key, especially them still being in 4 competitions. I think having a player like that is going to be very crucial down the line.
Okay, now that we've talked about all, I guess, pretty much that there is, let's hear your final score predictions. I guess, Mac, I'll start with you. Your final score predictions for this game.
I think I spoiled it a little bit earlier. I'm going to go with a 3-1, maybe stretching to a 3-2 Manchester City win. Again, I think that Man City are still on their day when they're up for a game, are a different level than what Manchester United are right now. That's no disrespect. You can argued and say that probably everyone in the world, if Man City are on their day, you're not at their level. But I think the difference would be is that for maybe a longer time in this game, it could potentially be closer. I wouldn't be surprised if we're going into the 66th minute and still 1-1 at that point. And at that point, it may break through for City, and that's where they're separated. Where Manchester United, even though they come away with the loss, it's more like a kind of a positive loss in a way, where it's like, hey, we've taken a step forward. We're not just kind of the little brother anymore. We can fight back. So that's more so what I want them to. That's what I expect to happen in this game.
Okay, and Gio, is this another sort of claim for Man U to cement themselves in the top 4?
It is, but it's not going to be a win. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. I think it can get scrappy. Again, depending on the lineup that ETH puts out. Obviously, Mac, fair shout for Aaron Wan-Bissaka to start. That defensive presence, just to frustrate Haaland as much as you can, is going to be important as well. So I think, 2-2. We can hit him on a counterattack. Again, like I said, Rashford, form of his life. Anthony scored a couple. Maybe we can even see the new signing late in the game if he can cause some trouble for them. So I would be predicting a 2-2. Hopefully they can snag a point.
Okay, great. So let's move on quickly to another game we're going to quickly preview, Brighton versus Liverpool. Now, last time out, these guys ended up with a 3-3 tie, a Firmino double, and a Trossard hat-trick. Currently, Liverpool are sitting 7th in the Premier League, with Brighton sitting only a point behind them in 8th. Now, this is, I think, obviously, I'm a Liverpool fan. I think this is a very, very tricky game for Liverpool. I do think Liverpool are expected to be favorites, but again, with the way things have been going this season, I will not be surprised if Brighton come out with a win, especially with the run form that they've had so far. Great performances against Everton, and I think a couple wins against Arsenal, and then a couple wins with that notable one against Everton, winning 4-1. But I guess, Mac, for you, what do you expect to happen in this game?
I think this game, and the game that we're talking about today, is I could see it go any which way. I could see Liverpool come back and reassert the dominance. I could see Brighton put up a phenomenal performance and snag out a win. I could see a very low-scoring tie. These teams, more so Liverpool, they're like a joker in a deck. You don't know what you're going to get out of it. You're confused. You're surprised. You can be happy. You can be disappointed. There's no consistency to their style of play and their form, which it makes it difficult to predict kind of what you think could happen. If I were to have my best guess, I think Liverpool, we're going to have a high-scoring game. We're going to have Liverpool just barely edge it out. The concerning part for me is the back line for Liverpool. I think Van Dijk is reported that he looks like he's going to be out for a month, which obviously best defender, arguably, in our previous podcast. Spoiler, one of the best signings in Premier League history in January. A phenomenal center half and a player you want on your pitch week in, week out. But if he's not there, that's a big hole. And those boots have to be filled. So you need a strong performance from a Matip, a Konate, whomever it may be back there. So it'll be interesting to see how they pull through. But overall, I think you're probably expecting, just given the stature of the team and the attacking front three that Liverpool could potentially play, that they should at least get enough goals to kind of score their way through this matchup.
Okay, Gio, same thoughts? Same question, sorry?
I want to see madness. I want to see madness in this game. No surprise here, right? But you know, I'm very curious as to whether Liverpool gives Cody Gakpo a couple more minutes here, see what he can do. But I'm actually more curious to see Darwin Nunez. I want to see how he bounces back from games where critics are saying he didn't really have a great game, and although Liverpool are struggling, there just hasn't been a bright spot like in his time at Liverpool just yet. So I want to see how he kind of bounces back, and I think it's important for his confidence if he can score here. He hasn't scored in a bit. I know he scored. Did he score in a cup
against
game
Wolves?
Yeah. Other than that, even that performance in general wasn't great. It was solid, but it wasn't great. So I've yet to see a performance from Darwin Nunez that has just been like, okay, this is why they paid that much for him. So I'm really hoping to see that. But again, Brighton are dangerous. And we know this. So whether it's McAllister, whether it's Trossard, whether it's Mitoma, I think seeing those players, I'm very interested to see how they kind of exploit that back line of Liverpool, who again we know loves to play a high line. So a guy running in behind like Mitoma, who's again been in a good run of form, will be dangerous for Liverpool. So they should definitely keep an eye on him.
That's a great shout, Gio, because I put him in as a waiver to pick him up in my fantasy league against Liverpool. He's definitely going to score, and this Brighton team, who you don't see them as having like the fastest, strongest wingers or attacking players, but all of them know how to make smart runs. The interchange play up front is great. So I think if it was at Liverpool, I actually think Brighton would win. But because it is at Brighton, just based on recency bias, I watched a Brighton home game where they weren't that great. I think it might be a tie for this game. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams score upwards of 2 or 3 goals. So I expect a high-scoring tie for this fixture. But Matt, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, one thing I want to talk about, and I think this player is very, very fortunate to be on a team with Darwin Nunez where all the headlines are going straight to him. Because somebody who's not hit first gear yet, and it'll be interesting to see if he finally does, is Mohamed Salah. He has 7 Premier League goals this entire season thus far. That's a third of what Haaland has and under half of what Harry Kane has. If you said that this any time in his career outside of this given year, you'd be like, that he's playing in horrible form. What's going on here? Why isn't he playing at the standards that you would generally expect in terms of a goal return from that type of player historically, what he's done? It's just because there has been a bigger glaring hole that he's been able to hide behind somebody's shadow. But if he will be, for me, someone that, especially with Van Dijk out, that the pressure for scoring goals is going to be all the more. And it'll be interesting to see if he's able to step up.
Yeah, definitely interested to see that. I think it's a matter of a whole system issue, which we could definitely dive into, but definitely a player that stands out because of his goal scoring returns in previous seasons. Whether this is just what reality is going forward, we're yet to see, but definitely we'll keep an eye out on that. But guys, let's take a quick break here, and then we'll be back previewing some more Premier League games for this weekend. So stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are going to continue our preview of match week 20 of the Premier League. Now previewing Chelsea versus Crystal Palace. Chelsea, actually, at the time of recording, just come off a loss against Fulham, 2-1 away. Joao Felix did start just a day after arriving as a Chelsea loan signing, and surprise, surprise, gets a red card in his debut. So, not the greatest start, and more compounding of pressure on Chelsea. Gio, Crystal Palace coming off of a loss, not against Tottenham, who weren't on the best run of form. Can they turn it around against Chelsea, who are at sixes and sevens at the back and pretty much throughout the whole starting 11?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think Chelsea are just very lost. But also again, it's not that their defense is very bad. It's they have no creativity going forward, and I guess they try to bring in a guy like Joao Felix to sort of help, but he's not almost that creative player they're looking for or they need for that matter. He's a great piece to have in a front three if you have the right pieces surrounding him, but if you're expecting him to kind of go and create and to play a nice through ball or ping a long ball, to your front three, that's not going to be your guy. Although he did have a great game this game, it was unfortunate he got a red card. I guess he was just, in the moment, trying to make an influence for his new squad. Tough tackle, especially when VAR reviewing that, that's going to be a red card. But, I just think the quality in attack that Crystal Palace have, and especially coming off a tough win like that, they'd be hungry to try to get on the board again. Getting 4 by them and not being able to score. The offensive guys are definitely itching to, get shots off, get balls into the box. So if I'm Chelsea, I'm going to try and set up a little bit more defensively if I can.
Okay, I mean, that has to happen, right? They've been conceding game after game. Potter changed it back to a back 3 in this game, but you don't know if he's going to change it back into a back 4. Mac, what do you predict or see happening in this game?
I'm very concerned about Chelsea, and I think, Gio, we talked about this when it was just the podcast, when it was just you and I was asking you about how many are people going to come out to school and start criticizing Graham Potter? And I think that we are spot on. Is like, it's coming. I don't necessarily know if I am the owner, I would fire him yet, given the amount of time he's had with the team. But the Sharks are there, and they're going to keep coming and nipping at his ankles. And all the talk, especially after this game today, has been about him and his adjustment. Everyone's looking at, Joao Felix, that's fine. He was their biggest bright spot in the first 45 minutes, so it's hard to really criticize him for the red card. But the lackluster performance offensively, their key mistakes defensively, a lot of people are pointing the finger at Graham Potter because they've tried changing a lot of the players. You can't say that this team hasn't been active in the transfer market to bring in other players. They have. So what else is the problem? It's like in the NBA, a lot of the times when it's really difficult to make trades at this point. So if there's something going wrong, if you're general manager, what do? You fire the coach. And I think it's getting closer and closer to that point for Graham Potter. And I think coming out and losing another London derby, I know that's probably maybe the smaller one of the one that we may talk about in this podcast. But, just maybe. But it's not a great look. And that's just going to keep more pressure with it being this type of rival. So for this individual game against Crystal Palace, this is an opportunity for turn it around because for me, Crystal Palace on their day could look like a phenomenal team. But at the same time, could look like a horrible team. Really, it's why does Andre Ayew still play? Does he have photos of somebody in the club? I don't know. Why are you there? Just play a front 3 of Zaha, Olise, and Eze, and just shut up shop everyone else, and it's calm days for everybody. Everyone's happy, okay? Especially against these bigger teams. But for this game, now that we know, of course, Joao Felix can't play, does Chelsea kind of revert back? Because they tried a 3-5-2, it seemed like a lot of the time in this most recent game, whereas they've been playing more so a 3-4-3 beforehand. Mount was much more kind of reserved, much more deep lying in comparison to being an attacking front 3. Does that change back and maybe Aubameyang comes back into the starting lineup, which is not great? So overall, I think Chelsea are in struggle city, and they're only fortunate they're facing a team that also seems to be living there at the moment. Sorry, one thing I want to say. I saw the stat, and I think it's very important to point out. Ben White, the right back for Arsenal, has more touches inside the box than Aubameyang does so far this year. So It's even if he does come in, which is what I think may happen, doesn't look great. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's obviously opposing opponent's box, not your own box.
Yes.
Not a great look for Chelsea. And and to compile on all the issues we're talking about, they can't score, they can't keep a clean sheet. They were dominated in this game in midfield. They played a midfield of Mateo Kovacic, Denis Zakaria, who actually went off injured, and Mason Mount, as you can say, the three in midfield behind Havertz and Felix. Zakaria is not injured. Jorginho came on, didn't look great, but I mean, you can't really fault him. They were pretty much chasing the game after that, and the other midfield that came on was Conor Gallagher. We did talk about how they are making signings. They made a signing, I think, at center back. They obviously brought in João Felix on loan, but midfield, I think, is also a big problem that they need to address. And it'll be interesting because, well, credit to Fulham, they have a pretty decent midfield in the Premier League now. Whereas Crystal Palace, you can say that their midfield is also a little bit questionable. So we'll be interested to see how these two teams battle it out in midfield, because obviously we know things can go either way on offense for each team. So we'll see how it goes. I guess at this point, let's try to predict some of the scores. I can go first. It's going to be Chelsea 2-1 win, barely 2-1 win. But Gio, let's hear your predictions.
I'm going 2-1 Palace.
Ooh.
I don't think Chelsea struggled to score more than one goal. So yeah, I just think, Palace, going against Chelsea's defense, I think are good, and Palace going against the counterattack is also better than Chelsea. So I think their expected goals should be higher. If not, it will be.
Okay, Mac, lastly for you.
I'll go in between the both of you. I'm going to go 2-2 tie. I think both teams will score. I think Crystal Palace will take this as a win, a step forward, and Chelsea is going to heap more pressure on this. So even though I think the points will be shared, I think it's still kind of a downturn for Chelsea.
I know we're not really talking about any other teams outside of the Premier League right now, but honestly, Atletico Madrid playing 4D chess, loaning João Felix out, and getting a fee back for him, just so that they can pay off Diego Simeone, and then João Felix returns after extending his contract. Just had to mention that 4D chess by Atletico Madrid, and so interesting to see what they'll do. Let's move on from this, guys, to a special segment now. We are going to play a game, and this game we've actually played before in our podcasts. It's over or under, and in this game, both Mac and Gio will have to work together against myself. And so, do you guys need me to read out the rules for you again, or you guys sort of got the idea?
I think we have the idea, but just give us a quick rundown. Give us the 30-second the rule.
Sure. So I have 3 categories, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a player, and then this category is appearances. Has this player made has he had more appearances than the player before, or has he has fewer appearances than the player before? And we go so on until you guys get it wrong. Let's start. And in this podcast, the theme is derbies, so we're obviously going to touch on the players that have featured in these derbies before. Firstly, the Manchester Derby, and this one is Premier League appearances. The player that we're going to talk about, fairly decent run of form for Man U. Luke Shaw has 161 Premier League appearances for Man U. And again, I want to stress out it's Premier League appearances. The next player, guys, that we are going to have to guess is Riyad Mahrez. Does he have more or fewer than 161 Premier League appearances for Manchester City?
Sorry, I just want to clarify. It's for the individual club or their entire Premier League career?
For that club, Man City or Manchester United. And these players are going to alternate.
Gio, sorry, and the number was 160...
161 appearances for Manchester United. Luke Shaw, how many? So, do you think Mahrez has more or fewer than 161?
I say fewer.
Premier League appearances?
I say fewer.
I'm
scared, but I say fewer. I'm scared.
I'm scared, but also because Pep likes to play a rotation. Like he loves to play a rotation, and sometimes he doesn't get his minutes.
Yes.
Or like he doesn't get to play at all. So
no, I'm 100% on board. The first thing that came to mind was fewer because of rotation. But the scary part is half his minutes could be subs, and that counts as an appearance. So it just scares me. You know, I'm with you, Gio, because I think he's been. They won the it's Premier League 160 appearances. Leicester won the title in the 2015-2016 season. Is that correct? And
I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah.
And then they didn't leave. He didn't leave the next year. He left the following year than that. So that's 15, 16, 17, 18. Sorry. So that's 17, 18. 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, 2022. So that's averaging 25 appearances a season to beat out Luke Shaw, if my math is mathin'. You know? So
you guys are thinking that
I don't think it's that. I think it's fewer. I'm with Gio. Done. Let's lock that in. Let's not take too long. Sorry.
So the answer is correct. Okay. He has fewer than 161, 139 Premier League appearances at the time of recording. Then, thank you. I'm gonna ask you guys to just speed it up a little bit. The next player is Marcus Rashford. Does Marcus Rashford have more or fewer than 139 Premier League appearances?
More.
Manu.
More. 100%.
Okay. Both of you are in agreement, and that's correct. It's more. Marcus Rashford to date has 221 Premier League appearances for Manchester United. Next player is Vincent Kompany. Does Vincent Kompany have more or fewer than 221 Premier League appearances for Manchester City?
Wait, 100 and what?
No, 200.
221.
221. I think he's close.
I don't know why.
He's
thinking
very
over.
close.
Over.
I was also thinking over because he went through that struggle phase of City too, when they weren't getting their recognition.
Because he was their first signing, their first big name signing, you know?
Right.
Yes.
As a defensive midfielder, actually, which is funny.
Shocking.
So I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go over with Gio. I'm on board with Gio.
I agree.
That is correct. Vincent Kompany edges out Marcus Rashford at time of recording, 265 Premier League appearances for Manchester City. And now we're moving on to player number 5, Chris Smalling. For Manchester United, does he have more or fewer than 265 Premier League appearances?
Fewer.
Fewer.
Okay, 100%. In agreement, that is correct. Chris Smalling has only 206 appearances for Manchester United. Next player is Anthony Martial. Does Anthony Martial have more or fewer than 206 Premier League appearances for Manchester United at the time of recording?
Gio, I think it's fewer as well.
Wait, fewer than what number? Sorry,
206. If you think Rashford's done 220, he's definitely Rashford's played more games than him. So I'm basing off that. So I'm going to go fewer.
Great. That is correct. 183 appearances. And last one to get the win, boys. Raheem Sterling. Does Raheem Sterling have more or fewer than 183 Premier League appearances for Manchester City? Look at Gio's eyes. That's correct.
That's a tough one.
Only Man
City.
That's a tough
one.
183 is the.
I'm going to go more. because was it Mahrez was at 130-ish if I remember correctly, right? And if you think about it, Sterling just left this last year, and he has like 4 seasons on him playing every week for who was the manager before Pep. That's my guess. That's what I'm basing it off, Gio. So he's had more time, and Pep loved him some Sterling early on, especially early on. So I think I'm going to go more.
Logic. It's just
it hurts. This is the most difficult one. This is the most difficult one.
For the win, boys.
Guys, for the win, for the dub.
Okay, I will go with Mac.
Great. That is correct. So, guys, you guys win. That is correct. Chris Raheem Sterling 225 Premier League appearances for Manchester City. So that's one. Best out of three. There's two more categories, and so we'll quickly move on to those. Next one is the North London Derby. Appearances again. We're going to start off with the manager for Arsenal currently. Mikel Arteta has, at the time of recording, 150 Premier League appearances for Arsenal. The next player we're going to guess is Eric Dyer. Does Eric Dyer have more or fewer than 150 Premier League appearances for Tottenham Hotspur?
More.
I agree with you.
More.
Okay.
Has to be more.
That is correct. He has 254 at the time of recording Premier League appearances.
He's a vet.
A little surprising. Next player is Bukayo Saka. Does he have more or fewer than 254 Premier League appearances? Fewer. That's correct. Bukayo Saka has 114 Premier League appearances for Arsenal at the time of recording. Next one is Lucas Moura. Does Lucas Moura have more or fewer than 145 Premier League appearances for Tottenham Hotspur?
He's been there for a minute.
He has.
But he also hasn't played in a minute.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he has like 100 appearances and like 95 have been as subs. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's always been the sub.
Always a second half. He's a second half energy type guy.
Yeah, so I'm down to hit the over with this, Gio.
I am as well.
Okay, that is correct. Lucas Moura, time of recording, 145 Premier League appearances for Tottenham Hotspurs. Next player is, let me just look here, Olivier Giroud. Does Olivier Giroud have more or fewer than 145 Premier League appearances for Arsenal only? 145.
More.
So in my brain, I remember it as more because every single one of them was painful. So maybe I'm just overselling it here, but I'm going to go over.
Definitely over.
That is correct. 180 Premier League appearances for Arsenal. Could return and make more.
No,
maybe one day.
We're good. Next.
Next player is Davinson Sanchez. Does he have more or fewer than 180 Premier League appearances?
Under.
That's correct. 135 for Davinson Sanchez. So two more guys. The next one is Heung-min Son. Does he have more or fewer than 135 Premier League appearances for Tottenham Hotspurs?
Over. Gio, simple over.
Okay, that is correct. And last one, none other than Granit Xhaka. Does Granit Xhaka have more or fewer than 248 Premier League appearances for Arsenal? 248 is the number. Under or over for Granit Xhaka?
Son of a... That's close. This one's got to be... I wouldn't be surprised if it's less than 20 difference between the two, plus or minus. Xhaka was, I think, I don't know if he was a final season Wagner signing.
Wait, what's the number again? Sorry?
248.
248.
To be fair, he missed a lot of games because you can't play games after accumulation of yellow or red cards, right? So that might knock him back, even though he has the seasons, he may not have the games, you know?
But also there was a period of time where he just wasn't getting selected.
No, I'll tell you right now, that never happened. There was that period of time was very, very short. My guy was always starting or coming off on the bench. And
I'm just gonna ask you guys to speed up a little bit.
I'm sorry, Gio. You decide. I'm too biased to judge.
248. 248 is the number.
Over.
Over 248. That is incorrect. Granit Xhaka only has 205 Premier League appearances for Arsenal. So for Arsenal. So that's 1-1 tiebreaker, guys. We are gonna go, and this one is a very, very fun one. Derby goal scorers, and you guys might know the ones latter, but we'll have fun with the ones that are coming up right now. Marcus Rashford has 3 goals against Manchester City so far in his career. The next player we're gonna guess is a player who recently retired, Gareth Bale. Does Gareth Bale have more or fewer than 3 goals against Arsenal for Tottenham Hotspurs? 3 goals to beat.
Fuck.
I would say more. He's the only person to score against those, like in those days. No, like him and Aaron Lennon. Like who's really scoring?
Peter Crouch. Yo, let's
Bro,
go.
get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here.
Defoe. Get the strap Defoe.
I'm gonna say
3.
I want to say more. I want to say more.
I want to say more.
So let's say more. Say more.
That is correct. Gareth Bale scored 5 times in the North London Derby. I'm going to change it now to that term because I have another one coming up that's going to be really fun. The next player is Sergio Aguero. Does he have more or fewer than 5 goals in the Manchester Derby for, obviously, Manchester City?
Does the
Aguero
goal count? Does that goal count? Because I think that should count.
Even if it didn't, like even if it does count, I think it's more.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more.
Okay.
Yeah, let's look more.
Yeah.
So the answer is correct. Aguero has 9 goals in the Manchester Derby.
Yeah.
Next player we're gonna guess is Thierry Henry. Does Thierry Henry have more or fewer than 9 goals in the North London Derby throughout his career?
That's a tough one.
Out of respect, I'm going to go over. I have no logic to back this up. I have 0 logic to back this up. But back when he played against Tottenham were not that good. That's my logic. That's my logic. Gio.
Okay.
I'm probably wrong. I'm probably wrong, but
But it's also Thierry Henry though.
Yeah, exactly. If I say over and I lose because I say over Thierry Henry, I'm happy because it's not
Okay, let's go over.
So over is incorrect. He only has 5 goals in the North London Derby, Henry. So, fortunately, guys, you guys lose. But if I could quickly just go over the next couple players that I had, which would have been fun. The next one was, how many goals does Emmanuel Adebayor have in the North London Derby? That's interesting because he played for both Arsenal and Spurs.
He's taking the piss. I'm going to go under. Fuck that guy.
And that would be incorrect. He has 8 goals, 6 for Arsenal and 2 for Spurs. So he scored for both teams. And then we're just going to finish it off. Obviously, the last 2 players were Wayne Rooney. He has 11 goals in the Manchester Derby and leading goal scorer in the North London Derby. And could extend that number is Harry Kane with 14. So valiant effort, boys. That was a good game. However, you guys did lose. Maybe you guys can come back together next time, and we'll hope for a win for you guys. On that note, we're going to take one last break here, and then we'll be back previewing the big one, the North London Derby. So stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are going to finish off today's podcast previewing the North London Derby. Mac, on a scale of 1 to 10, similar to Gio, could you give me your rating on how excited you are for this weekend?
-2. I'll be honest with you. It's this weekend can be horrible or amazing. There's no 2 ways about it. I'll be honest. As we talked about earlier, the Man City Manchester United one, and for me that's a win-win. Either team wins, I'm happy, and I could argue a way to be happy. This one not as hard. It's a little bit tougher to try to be happy if Arsenal do end up dropping points here. Overall, I think. Overall, I would be surprised if that does happen. I'll be completely honest. I think there is a better team. In their last result, Arsenal won 3-1. And were fairly dominant through the entire match and looked like the only team to really have a chance at winning. Understood, yes, Harry Kane did end up come back to tie a goal from penalty shout. But overall, Arsenal were fairly dominant and Tottenham really struggled to be able to get out and hit Arsenal on the counter. With this, though, being at Bunman Stadium, playing with away for Arsenal, this may end up being a little bit tougher. At the same time, this might heap more pressure on Tottenham to actually get out and play, which further makes it easier for Arsenal to be able to get into their game, get into the rhythm, because even though, yes, they want to play on the front foot, they want to play on the ball, they're very, very capable playing on the counter, especially the major change, and maybe we'll talk about this from this Arsenal team to that Arsenal team, is the kind of injury to Gabriel Jesus. He was the man of the match in the matchup between Arsenal and Tottenham last time around. And Nketiah has come in, and there's some games when he's looked better, some games he's looked not as great. he, in my opinion, generally is playing best when he's in the break, when he's able to get into space, because he's very good at getting behind defenders and trying to be able to create a 2-on-1 or 3-on-2 on a break for our Arsenal team after some quick build-up possession. So if Tottenham do get on the front foot at any point, I think that will probably be his best shout to be able to get into the game, because the weakest part of the game, is my opinion, is the pressure. He doesn't apply the same level of pressure as Jesus, and there's a distinguishable difference between the two, which theoretically should mean Tottenham might have a chance to break out earlier, and I think that's where the matchup will end up being decided, is if Tottenham do end up getting out, what type of pressure in the midfield can Arsenal do to be able to win back possession and kind of get them back on the front foot? Or will they continue to struggle to even get out against a high-press team like Arsenal? So that's where I feel like the matchup will be one that press for Arsenal versus kind of the control in midfield for Tottenham.
Okay, honestly, Gio, I think you might be happy to hear this, but I don't think Spurs are better than Arsenal in any department, defense, midfield, or offense. So that being said, Gio, what do you expect to happen in this game, or what are you hoping to happen in this game?
And that's the truth. Happy to hear, of course, but I'm kind of conflicted. Like I want to see a tight title race at the end of the day. As a footballing fan, that's what you kind of want to see. You want to see competitive football week in, week out. So with that being said, I want a 0-0 draw. I want a 0-0 draw as much as people don't want to see and want to see some drama, want to see some chaos. That's realistically what I want to see. That's what I hope to see.
Of course,
as a Manchester United fan, but I do want to see a lot of goals as well. And I think sometimes Spurs rag on them a lot. But the fact of the matter is, when they score goals, they can score a lot of goals. But they are the Spurs of old, and they have a great game, and then they have a couple of bad games, and then they have a great game. So it's hard to say, but I do think Arsenal do edge this one. I think Harry Kane is not going to be enough. Obviously, he's going to be the focal point, and he always has been the focal point. But the X factor is going to be a player more so like Son, and how he takes players on and really tries to attack that backline, because he hasn't had a great run of form himself. So he needs to sort of break out of that bubble and break out of the shell. And what better time than the North London derby?
Yeah, that's funny how you said, Gio, this is the Spurs of old. For Arsenal, this is the Arsenal of new, where to hear, Gio, it's an easy bet for Spurs to concede first, and as they've had conceded, I think in 7 of the last 8 Premier League games, they conceded first. In those games, you could see that happen and take place in this game, and they would have to come back in the front foot, from conceding first. But on the flip side, if Spurs score first, Arsenal have had it in them this whole season where they could come back and just put so much pressure on the opposing team where they just eventually crack, and they have the individual talent as well as the cohesive press, like Mac, you mentioned, to eventually put so much pressure that something happens, either the ball bounces your way and you get that touch at the end, or you get a call in your end or something. So a lot of things could happen, especially in a high intensity game like this. I guess, Mac, for you, are there any special matchups that you're interested in seeing for this matchup?
Absolutely. I think it'll be interesting. The first step is really earlier I talked about Arsenal's injuries, but now for Tottenham, they've had injury concerns themselves. Bentancur and Richarlison are for sure not coming back for this game, but there's been reports that both Kulusevski and Yves Bissouma might return, because in their last matchup, they had to play a midfield two of Højbjerg and Skip, and Brian Hill playing on the wing for Tottenham. So if those players are back, that could be a huge lift, because for me, I think it might be a little bit more difficult for Son to be able to get on the break and attack a player like Ben White with right behind him Saliba, in comparison to the other side, where personally, and I think we would all agree, is defensively not Arsenal's strongest, but a duo between Zinchenko and Gabriel, one-on-one individually, against a player like a Kulusevski, can be a dangerous matchup and for Spurs to be able to exploit. And I would actually find it interesting is if Kulusevski doesn't play, shift Son to that side, because if you're running Son's running at Zinchenko, I think he beats him 8 out of 10 times probably, just purely based off pace. So I think that for me is an interesting matchup for Spurs, what they may want to exploit if they are able to break out, and even further if Bissouma's coming back, so you don't have to play Skip. Potentially that puts them in a position where it's even easier for them to break down that midfield role. So those are the matchups I'm looking at from a defensive aspect for Arsenal and an attacking aspect for Tottenham. And if they're to be successful, I think those more so will have to be the way that the way for them to be successful. They need to win those battles.
For sure. And obviously with the Manchester derby also taking place this week, it could be a huge week for Arsenal if either I guess if either Manchester teams drop points, but also you are furthering yourself out from the chasing pack. Whereas if Spurs win, and depending on the Manchester derby result, they could jump back into the top 4. And really, after a performance against Crystal Palace, another win, especially against their rivals, could sort of settle the nerves for some fans. So I guess, Gio, some thoughts about how much is riding on this fixture here that we have?
Yeah, no, I think it's huge. Obviously, starting from the Manchester derby, I think both teams, both Arsenal and Spurs, are going to be watching that game very heavily. Almost, I know it's a game that you shouldn't even have to focus on that game in order to bring the intensity, but that will further the intensity of that game.
Right.
Spurs know that it's a great opportunity for them. Just knowing how strong City is. Jump back into the top 4. So, not only will that, put some confidence back into the fans, it will put some confidence back into the team after coming off a pretty convincing win against Crystal Palace. Sorry. And then for Arsenal, again, you can never be too comfortable against, while a team like City are chasing you. So the importance of that, just staying focused on the goal. Now it's down to 5 points, I believe. So, if City and Arsenal still have to play each other twice, that's a 6-point swing. So at the end of a few weeks, City could be at the top spot. So adding points where they can is definitely a goal of theirs right now. So both games actually the intensity should be riding very high.
Yeah, and I predict chaos for both games. And on that word, prediction, Mac, give us your predictions for this game.
I think Arsenal edge it, similar in terms of what they did, but less of a convincing fashion that they did against Tottenham when they're playing at home. So I think it might be a same result. I'm going for a 3-1 result for Arsenal. It would be very interesting. I think Odegaard, he just has come off winning Player of the Month in the Premier League for December or January? I forgot because I saw the results came out. Either way, it's coming off a very, very, very strong run of form. And if him and Saka are playing well offensively, I think really much anything is possible for them. And coming off a draw, if they are a team kind of like a draw which they feel like they should have won if they had a couple of decisions go their way, if they are a team at that echelon of Man City, after you drop points, you come back and you're ready to play again and you're ready to be able to kind of win out. So overall, I think this is it for all 4 teams that we're talking about in both the Manchester and the London derby here. I think every team has the potential for having a season-defining performance where if their results go on their way, it completely shifts the talk that you'll have around the team. So I do think Arsenal edge this and put themselves in the position where, hey, we're squarely in the Man City echelon. Are we better than them? We'll have to wait and see, but we're in that tier. If they do lose this game, you could argue that it's just been kind of a good run of form. So hopefully, and from my perspective, biased, of course, they edge us out.
Yeah, I think he is expected to be the Premier League Player of the Month for December. December would be because obviously they haven't finished the month for January yet. So on that same note, as I said, I don't really see Spurs being better than Arsenal on any of those departments. Both I'll defense, midfield, and going forward. And Odegaard, like you said, him on that run of form, I do expect him to be able to thread a couple of balls through to those wide players for Arsenal, and I expect a 2-0 win for Arsenal. And so, Gio, to round up the results, do you give Spurs any chance? What are your final score predictions for this game?
I was actually going to say 3-2, and I can see Arsenal scoring a late one to actually take the game. I think it's gonna be a tighter game than most people think, and give Spurs credit for. But yeah, I do think it's gonna be a 3-2 win for Arsenal, and they create a little bit more of a gap for themselves.
Okay, well, you heard it from here, guys. Those are our predictions for the derbies taking place this weekend. And on that note, we are concluding our podcast for today. We're obviously going to give you guys all of our reactions in our next podcast coming up on Tuesday. But if you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. Our handle is @houseof_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, feel free to get in touch with us via email as well. We are available at houseoffooty@hotmail.com. On that note, guys, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so happy and yet so scared for this weekend.
Thank you, Gio.
Can't wait for a great weekend of football, boys.
And same here. So thank you guys for listening. We'll be back with you next week.